This week on Big Red's Cooking, we make fish cakes. Hi, and welcome back to Big Red's Cooking. As always, I'm Big Red. So for this week, I'm gonna do fish cakes. And you might be thinking, fish cakes? Why would you bother doing fish cakes? That's like such a a favorite here in Newfoundland, anyhow. Well, I do have people watching who aren't here in Newfoundland who maybe have never given it a shot. I'm going to use salt fish, and for any of my Italian or Portuguese friends, bacalhau. But not only that, I'm going to show you a little trick to take it and make it look like a restaurant quality fish cake. And that's what I'm hoping, is that people are tuning in for some of these things that they already know how to make, but they just want to make that a little bit better. So that's enough talking for me for now. Let's go on over to our workbench and we'll get started over there. Alright, so this is going to be a pretty traditional, Newfoundland style salt fish cake. Now, where the real trick is going to come in at the end when I show you guys how to shape it. So if you've never cooked with salt cod, and anyone who's grown up here in Newfoundland probably has, but I don't want to assume. We generally have to soak it overnight, which I've already done. So I've got my fish here, which has been soaking overnight. I'm just going to give this a drain now. I'm going to put some fresh water in, and we'll get this cooking. Alright, so what I like to do is I like to actually cook my potatoes in with my salt cod. It's going to season the potatoes. It's going to give them that salt that we want. And what I find best is to actually cook the potatoes with the skins on. Now I've given these a really good scrub already. You can see they're nice and clean looking. So we're just going to go ahead and pop these right on down in the cold water. And we'll bring this to a simmer. And what we'll find is that once our potatoes are properly cooked through, our fish is going to be perfectly cooked as well. And when those potatoes are nice and hot, it's going to be really easy for those skins to just slide right on off. So for now, we're just going to let this come up to a simmer and cook away. Alright, so our fish and our potatoes are simmering away nicely. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to render off a little bit of salt pork. And we're going to get the onions cooked. Now what I like to do is make sure I have none of the rind on the pork at all. And to take this and cut this down in really small pieces. For one, it's going to render it a little bit faster, but two, those pieces are really going to melt down to almost nothing at all, and then I can mix them into my fish cake without having to worry about big chunks of fat to be biting down into. So anytime I'm rendering off fat, what I'm always doing is starting it in a cold pan and on a relatively low temperature. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow that fat to really just melt down, so we can get all that liquid fat to be able to cook in. Dice up an onion here. Alright, so our pieces of fat are nicely rendered off here. So I'm going to go ahead and add my onion down into the pan. So our onions are coming along quite nicely here now, getting all nice and caramelized down. They're going to be super tasty. Let's give this potato a poke. Almost done. We want that potato to be able to pierce down nice and easily. But I'll talk about the potatoes for a quick moment now while we're waiting for them to finish cooking. I'm using specifically russet potatoes. If you've seen any of my other videos where I've talked about potatoes, you'll know that there's a big difference between what we call starchy and waxy potatoes in kitchens. Right? A lot of people refer to them as dry and wet potatoes. So a russet is a starchy potato, and it's actually going to absorb a lot of liquid in the cooking process and fall apart really easily. You know, which is what we want. We want something that's going to mash up really nice and actually lose its moisture. You know, if we were to use something like a Yukon Gold or a red skin potato, it's just it's a waxy potato, and it holds its shape really well when cooked, and therefore not really ideal for a fish cake. So, you know, if you can, when you're making these fish cakes, make sure you get yourself some russet potatoes. So just a few more minutes and we'll get our fish and our potatoes off. For now, I'm going to turn these onions off, and I'm just going to let them finish sitting here in the pan. And they'll caramelize down a little bit more, but it'll also help it cool them down a little bit, just make the whole mixing process a little easier for us. Let's go ahead and give these potatoes a little poke. Oh yeah, they're done there now. We'll just go ahead and give these a little quick drain. Alright, so to peel these potatoes, it's going to be relatively easy, but they are hot. Now, you probably played hot potato as a kid. Well, this is a literal hot potato, so I find it's kind of nice actually to have a piece of paper towel. And you'll notice the skins just sort of come right off. Now, if you notice any bad spots, you know, you can go ahead and cut it out. Simple as that. Those potatoes are all nice and peeled, a lot less wastage than peeling the potatoes. And they're actually going to mash up nicer for us. So a lot of advantages in cooking them with the skins on. So we'll get rid of this. Alright, so we're just going to put our potatoes to the side for a moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flake up all my fish. And I like to simply just take a couple of forks, get in there, and just break it up so we get some nice pieces. This is going to allow the steam to escape as well. Right, the less liquid we have here, the nicer these are going to cook up. Alright, so next thing I have here, this is called a potato ricer. This is a great little tool. Now if you don't have one of these, you know, you can go ahead and use just a standard masher or something like this. But what this means is that I actually have to handle my potato a whole lot less, and I get this beautiful, nice small little pieces of potato. It's almost like those Play-Doh sets, the barber sets, when you used to have to squeeze the hair out. So you can see that just sort of, and what that allows is for a lot of the steam to escape. So we end up with some really nice dry pieces of potato, which is what we want. Alright, so that's it for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just put this to the side. I'm going to let this cool down a little bit before we go mixing it any further. I want to try and let some of the steam escape. So we'll come back probably in about 45 minutes or so. Alright, so our mixture is cooled down here now, and I can get ready to actually mix this up. Now the reason why I want to let this get nice and cool is that I like to add an egg yolk in. Now this is an optional, not everyone does it, and everyone thinks they need to. I find it just helps everything to bind together really well. Now what I like to do is to actually give this egg a really good whisk ahead of time, and that way I don't have to mix this any more than I need to. You know, the less we can mix this, the better, because potato sometimes when we mix it too much, and this is another advantage to having let it cool down, is that when we overmix it, it breaks down those cell walls, releases a lot of starch. It can make things really wet and soggy. So the less we can handle our potato, the better we're going to end up with a nicer texture. Just go ahead and mix that down, pour that down over, and we'll get this a mix through. Now if you look carefully, you can see we got some nice big chunks of fish in there. We haven't made our fish pieces too small. You know, people are going to know that they're eating a fish cake. And that's what we want. Alright, so the other thing is I like to keep them consistent in size. So I'm actually going to use a ½ cup measuring cup. What I'm going to do before I even get started, So I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of flour right over the top of my cutting board here. Alright, so we got our, I managed to get 7 piles out of this. So, we could very easily just take this and sort of, pack this into a nice little fish cake. You know what, and that looks not too bad. But I told you I was going to show you guys something as a way of really taking it and stepping it up a notch. Now, palette knife comes in really handy, and I'm going to do this with just some of my regular kitchen tools as well, in case you don't have one of these. If we take our palette knife and we roll it around the edges, we can take it, flatten it across the top, using our board. What we'll end up with is something that's going to look really nice with really clean little edges, and it's going to look like it came out of the machine and just sort of cut right into a puck. And there you go. Look how nice and clean those edges are. So here, I'll do this again. So what we're going to do again, we're going to take our stuff, we're going to pack it into a good nice little ball, and we'll shape it into a basic fish cake. And again, feel free to stop at this point. What I then like to do, a little dust, take our palette knife and roll it along the edges and give it a couple little taps across the top. Flip it over, pat down the bottom side as well. There we go, we've got really nice clean edges for that. So I'm going to go ahead and get all these other ones finished up, and then we'll get these cooked. Alright, I'm sure I can hear through the camera already a few people going, oh hang on, he said he was going to do some without the palette knife. So here we go, just plain old butter knife. And we can do the exact same technique and get those nice clean edges. And just because I want to show off a little bit, I'll even do it with my egg flipper here. And show that really it doesn't matter what tool it is you're using, as long as you're following the correct technique. Alright, so I'm going to get my pan turned on and we'll get these cooking. So I like to do these in butter. I think butter just makes everything taste so much better. And what we want a fairly high heat, not too high of a heat, but we definitely want that butter sort of sizzling a little bit and getting a little bit frothy for us. Because if our heat is not high enough, what's going to do is it's going to get really soggy and then start to fall apart. By making sure our heat is high enough, we're going to get that nice crust that's going to form, and these will just sort of stay together. We'll get that nice outside that we're looking for. Now, of course, what we're going to want to do, we're going to want to dip these in flour a second time. Even though we were working with flour to shape them, we want to make sure we give them a good coat of flour, because that flour is what's going to seal it up and really give us the crust that we're looking for. Oh, those are looking fantastic. Alright, I think these are pretty much ready to come out of this pan here now. They're getting that nice golden brown color. So I'm going to get a couple of these on the plate. we'll go ahead and we'll jump on over our bench. We'll give these a little taste. I'll see you over there in a moment. So don't those just look fantastic? I got a little grainy mustard. I know a lot of people like plain mustard. I like grainy mustard, just a little bit extra flavor. Let's go ahead and get this a little bit of a taste. Mmm. Oh, I love fish cakes so much. Absolutely fantastic. So you can go, another Newfoundland classic. Really easy to make for yourself. You know, and you can see just by taking that few extra moments to shape it out, you get a much nicer looking fish cake. No offense to Mom, and I love my mom. She's great. But sometimes it's nice to be able to cook something that doesn't look like Mom made it, but something that was made by a restaurant. So as always, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you're going to keep coming back and watching more. If there's anything you'd love to see me do a video on, please let me know. Drop me a comment down below. Share this on all your different socials. If you haven't done so yet, please take a time to subscribe. There'll be a button, I don't know, somewhere around here at the end. You know, there'll be links to other videos, things like that. Keep coming back and watch for more. Bye for now. And the Multus.